inventor of basketball. Dr. Naismith, how did you happen to invent basketball?
Well, Mr. Heater, it was in the winter of 1891 when I was physical instructor at Springfield College in Massachusetts. We had a real New England blizzard. For days, the students couldn't go outdoors, so they began roughhousing in the halls. We tried everything to keep them quiet. We tried playing a modified form of football in the gymnasium, but they got bored with that. Something had to be done. One day I had an idea. I called the boys to the gym, divided them up into teams of 9, and gave them an old soccer ball. I showed them 2 peach baskets I'd nailed up at each end of the gym, and I told them the idea was to throw the ball into the opposing team's peach basket. I blew a whistle, and the first game of basketball began.
And what rules did you have for your new games, Dr. Naismith?
Well, I didn't have enough, and that's where I made my big mistake. The boys began tackling, kicking, and punching in the clinches. They ended up in a free-for-all in the middle of the gym floor. Before I could pull them apart, one boy was knocked out, several of them had black eyes, and one had a dislocated shoulder. It certainly was murder. Well, after that first match, I was afraid they'd kill each other, but they kept nagging me to let them play again. So I made up some more rules. The most important one was that there should be no running with the ball. That stopped tackling and slugging. We tried out the game with those rules, and we didn't have one casualty. We had a fine, clean sport. 10 years later, basketball was being played all over the country. And in 1936, I saw it played for the first time at the Olympic Games. And the whole thing started with a couple of peach baskets I put up in a little gym 48 years ago. I guess it just goes to show what you can do if you have to.
Indeed it does.
Reactions Matter by David W. Searcy, Jr. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share the video. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the content.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you're here. Hope you had a great, marvelous, beautiful, wonderful day. You know, it's the end of the evening. I've been checking out Larry Bird, and then I went to Pete, the Pistol, which is kind of cool. He got his name from a guy writing an article in the newspaper, and that was even his name on his shirt, Pistol. That's crazy. So we're gonna look at the history of basketball now, guys. I don't know, it started in 1891. Y'all heard the interview in the beginning of the video. Very interesting story. My guy was like, oh, I can't do this. These guys are going to hurt themselves. That's funny. So anyway, check this out. Let's get this started. It's the end of the evening. How basketball has evolved over the years. Go subscribe to Fast Break. He's got some really good content. All right, it's the end of the evening. Grab you one. Let's get it. Come on. My dude said basketball is my favorite sport. I like the way they dribble up and down the court.
Welcome to Fast Break, a channel for anything and everything NBA related. This time we're going to look at how basketball has evolved over the years. Before we see how the game has changed, we have to look at how it started. Basketball was created in 1891 by James Naismith, a PE teacher for Springfield College in Massachusetts. Naismith was just looking for a fun and healthy activity that his students could play during the winter. He called the game basketball, and it was played with peach baskets that were nailed to the wall on each end of the gym and a soccer ball. The ball was tossed up in the air in between players and played with 2 teams, who could only score by throwing the ball into their opponent's peach basket. And yes, the peach baskets were not bottomless, so the ball had to be removed manually each time someone scored.
How can you imagine that? Every time you score, you got to stop the game, wait 3-5 minutes for somebody to go up there and get that? But it's cool because the track that he nailed it to was exactly 10 feet high. So that's how the rims got to be 10 feet high. What else? Oh man, there's so much.
Also, no dribbling, so the ball could only be moved by throwing the ball to another teammate. The game picked up some steam, and in just 4 years, the first college basketball game was played between the University of Iowa and Springfield College, who ended up beating Iowa 5-1. But this was only the beginning. Soon after, the first men's and women's basketball teams were formed, and by 1904, basketball had officially become an Olympic sport. 2 years later, they ditched the peach baskets for a modern hoop made up of a metal rim, cloth net, and wooden backboard. This was just a change.
So they started it in 1891, but they didn't get metal rims till 1906. So that's like what, 15 years? 15 years they played with peach baskets, and it was basketball. It wasn't basketball. It was two words.
Change they needed to improve the tempo and scoring of the game. From this point until about the 40s, basketball saw the most changes in its lifetime. Everything from out-of-bounds ruling, court lines, substitutions, as well as redesigned basketballs and backboards. All of these changes were instrumental in evolving the game and making things more exciting, but also safer and more efficient.
That guy
Basketball
didn't
had
even
college
jump
and
to
professional
shoot.
level play, but in 1949, the game would change forever. The Basketball Association of America and the National Basketball League merged in 49 to create the National Basketball Association. Another change happened the same year. Coaching during the game was officially allowed. Prior to this, there was no coaching allowed during the game or even during a timeout, but coaching during halftime was. Leading into the
Wait a minute. You couldn't coach? So those guys really just went out there and played basketball. Oh man, I bet that first game was rough.
during halftime was. Leading into the 1950s, the manufacturing of basketballs became universal. So the technique of dribbling was implemented as the basketballs were more consistently shaped. Most shots at this time were taken close to the basket, and small players like Bob Cousy and George Yardley ruled the court. By the mid-50s, another big rule change came. The NBA introduced a 24-second shot clock after the lowest scoring game ever, 19-18. This eliminated the common stalling tactics being used by teams ahead in the game, since there was no way for the team behind to come back other than to foul. The first game with the new rule proved to be effective, with a score of 98-95. The most popular ways to shoot at this time were the set shot or one-handed runner, and from close to the basket, it was the hook shot. By the late 50s and the early 60s, big men had officially arrived and their presence was felt across the league. The NBA lived in the shadow of college basketball, but the 60s is when that changed. Players like Bill Russell and Will Chamberlain came into the league and immediately dominated, putting up stat lines that were unfathomable and still are.
Yeah, Bill Russell was, he was so dominant they couldn't do nothing. He won so many championships, and then Wilt Chamberlain came in and Wilt was like, yo, we changing this.
The game was fast-paced, which sometimes led to reckless sequences. But unlike players in the 50s, most players opted for shots in the painted area. Very few players were shooting from far out. Also, most players dribbled with their right hand over 75% of the time, which is much different from modern day. In 1967, the game would forever change with the formation of the ABA, a league that would become a home for players that weren't quite good enough for the NBA. But the ABA wanted to set themselves apart from the NBA, and to do that, they used a multicolored ball, introduced three-point shots, and featured a game that was played above the rim rather than under.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I remember that.
The 70s saw more change, but in a new way. In 1970, the average NBA player made $35K, and by the end of the decade, it skyrocketed to $180K. Before the 70s, players spent their summers working a second job, but this rise in pay allowed players to make life-changing money playing pro basketball. There were two reasons for this increase: the ABA and free agency. As the ABA grew, they started to rival the NBA. It caused bidding wars since the ABA owners offered significantly higher salaries, while the NBA was more established. In the early 1970s, the ABA would sign its biggest star, Julius the Dr. Erving, who would revolutionize dunking. Before this, there were putback dunks, but that's about it. Erving could windmill, rock the ball, go behind his back, his head, and other moves that no player had done with a basketball before. Despite the popular innovations and recognition from NBA players, the ABA was plagued with a series of bad business decisions. In the end, it could not make enough money on its own. So before the 1976-77 season, the ABA and NBA officially merged, with a plan to dismantle 3 ABA teams and incorporate their players into the NBA, while the other 4 teams would be absorbed by the NBA. They took from the ABA in more than one way and added a three-point line and a dunk contest. In terms of on-the-court play, the 70s introduced the jump shot and also above-the-rim play, most notably.
Okay, hold up. But I'm gonna back up here just a little bit. Basketball NBA didn't start till 1976. Come on, guys. Who knew that? Anybody know the NBA? Wait a minute. I've been playing basketball for a minute. I was 2 years old when the NBA was formed. Well, the modern day NBA, I guess. That's crazy.
Play, the 70s introduced the jump shot and also above the rim play, most notably dunking. Off-ball movement and reading the defense also became much more prominent throughout the decade. As we enter the 80s, the NBA had a huge drug problem. Many arenas were half empty or worse on game nights. Larry Bird and Magic Johnson are two huge reasons why the league was revitalized in the 80s. But when David Stern became the commissioner in 1984, he knew for the game to grow they needed more viewers. With cable beginning to take off, he knew TV was the key. The average player salary shows just that. In 1980, it was $180K and reached $900K by the end of the decade, another massive bump. In terms of play, even with the introduction of the three-point line in the late 70s, players still opted for close shots to the basket. With two bigs down on each block, the floppy action and cross screens were popular ways to generate offense. Doubling dominant post players was a chore and a half, especially with somebody like Kareem having mastered his unguardable hook shot. So when guards and ball handlers would feed the post, the defender guarding the passer would double the big down low. But the passer had no interest in keeping the defense honest and shooting an open three. The worse the shooter, the more space they were given while the defender struggled to be in the two places at the same time. An effective way to guard a post at this time and force a deep two. With no hand checking and no flagrant fouls, this is possibly the most physical decade in NBA history.
Oh yeah, well.
In the 90s, everything was getting better. The shooters,
NBA
ball handling, and isolation scoring. With dominant post players, the move was to still dump it down low, but for guards and wings, mid-range scoring became more prominent than it was in the 80s. Changing hard fouls to flagrants allowed for players like Michael Jordan to take less punishment and avoid major injury. Hand checking was also popularized in the 90s, which allowed defenders to steer offensive players away from the desired spot on the floor with one or both hands. This was much safer than the hard fouls in the 80s while also giving the defenders a chance to make a stop. At this point, your options were to commit to a double team or stay on your man. If caught in between, it was illegal defense. There was more spacing than in past decades, but that didn't stop big men like Hakeem Olajuwon from dominating inside. By the time we get to the new millennium, man defense seemed to have one major flaw. It did not account for Shaquille O'Neal. In the early 2000s, no other player could match Shaq's sheer size, and he regularly put up monster numbers. With the illegal defense rule gone and the implementation of zone defenses, the goal was to encourage ball movement and passing, but the underlying issue was Shaq. The zone defense allowed for teams to slow down Shaq and other big men while encouraging higher IQ play at the expense of pace and scoring. ISO scoring also became less effective with the defensive 3-second rule taking over for illegal defense. Instant replay was also implemented for review of certain last-second plays. By the mid-2000s, zone defense was in full effect, and scoring was harder than ever. With physical defense, big men not being as effective and offensive players not allowed to express themselves, something had to change. So the NBA got rid of hand checking entirely, which gave offensive players space that they needed to make offense prominent again. This change helped speed up the game and diminish the size advantage of its biggest players, while smaller players became much more effective. The 05 Suns are a team that perfectly represents this shift. As we move to the 2010s, the decade as a whole can be defined by three things: threes, analytics, and super teams. The first super team was technically the 08 Celtics, but it got taken a step further when LeBron announced he would be headed to South Beach to team up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. Small ball lineups started to be seen, and the value of big men was at an all-time low. Spacing the floor and surrounding somebody like LeBron with shooters allowed for the drive and kick attack to work better than ever. And this is when the three-pointer started to gain some real value, or rather, show its real value.
Wow, man, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. First of all, the three-pointer wasn't introduced until 1979, I believe. Basketball didn't start till NBA as we know it didn't. Basketball started in 1891. And wow, what a difference in the game, huh? People were not able to dribble. After every basket, they had a jump ball. Wow. This is amazing. Like, this is crazy. Who would have thought?
Super teams were beginning to assemble, and threes were falling at an all-time rate. What a time to be alive. Steph Curry is the poster boy for three-point shots. It only took 40-plus years to realize the value in shooting more threes. Steph was also part of one of the most infamous super teams, the Warriors of the late 2010s. With Kevin Durant joining a team in Golden State that already had 3 All-Stars, this was peak player empowerment. Super teams and player empowerment heavily affected who played with who and the balance of the league. But the game itself was being influenced by analytics. This whole three-point revolution was data-driven. To put it simply, shooting 33% from 3 is the same points per shot as shooting 50% on 2-point attempts. This has led to a 5-out offense with versatile players all over the floor who can guard multiple positions and fight through or over screens. But the bottom line is, if you can't be a threat from 3, then you'll be on the bench come playoff time. And that's where we are today. One last significant change was made prior to this past season. After the 2021 season, the league deemed flopping strictly forbidden, a trend which gained traction in the 2010s. No more foul hunting and jumping into defenders for easy calls. Less flopping meant less stoppages, which is a win-win for everyone. Players can do what they do best, and fans get more of an entertaining game to watch. It's very exciting.
Who is the best flopper? Like, who flopped the best? Steve Nash? I don't know. There were some good floppers back in the day.
The game will keep changing through the years, and that's a good thing. It's what's supposed to happen. Make sure to let us know what video you would like to see next down in the comments. And don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more NBA content.
Dope. That was dope. That was a good video.
Welcome to Fast Break.
Hold up. Most insane comebacks. No, we're not finna go there. All right, here we go. What do y'all think, man? Wow, that was crazy. That's crazy. But that's just crazy. Basketball started in 1891 by a guy who said, hey, let's put 2 peach baskets around the track and y'all try to throw this ball in there. But you can't dribble. Probably because it was a soccer ball, so it wasn't very bouncy. But you can't dribble, and you can't run with the ball. So as soon as you touch it, you got to stop, throw it to somebody else. Wow, what an interesting game. The shots, did you see them? The shots, they were just like, boop. They had the thing. Oh, you know what? Hold up. Let me see if I can find that. Hold on. Just to end the video on like a funny. Because I tell you what, they got some. Let's see. Hold on. Let me type this in. Early years basketball. Let's see. EARLY. Years. I can't spell. IARSBASKETBALL. Early years basketball. Watch this. This is crazy. Here we go. 1939.
At New York's Madison Square Garden, a City College quintet faces 5 fast and fancy web feet from the University of Oregon. It's the opening contest of an intersectional doubleheader, and New York draws 2 points worth of first blood.
Did you see that shot? Bro, did you see that shot?
Fans watch the boys from the Pacific Coast as they try to stem the onslaught of City College Beavers.
Hook was a big shot,
when
too.
Silverstein shoots off the hardwood to cage the ball, and the ball game for
Look at that.
CCNY 38-36.
Bro, he was like way outside the...
But the evening's court sport is a long way from the locker rooms. In the second game, a team of Northwestern Wildcats is matched against St. John's University of Brooklyn. The lads from Illinois are off to a springboard start. When
I don't even know what that was. That was a shot put.
But tribal warfare comes to the gymnasium as the St. John's Indians retaliate with 2 points. From now on, the game is touch and go, with 10 men helping to get it there. A beautiful display of teamwork, and Northwestern gets in the number column with sharpshooting Bob Coble doing the honors.
A kind of a hook? I don't know. Was that a hook? Oh, is he
But
gonna
the
get it?
Brooklyn
Nope.
boys are by no means in the basement, for St. John's takes home the game, 49-41, when Bucky sinks one to wind it up.
See what I'm saying? But that's crazy. Oh, y'all were looking at it on the small screen. Hold up. Let me see if there's that other one with the ladies. I don't know. It was like, I titled it WNBA. Here it is. Here it is right here. Let me get on big screen. Hold on. Wait. Hold up. Stop. What are you doing? You're going too fast. Hold up. Stop right there. Come down here. Hit this button. All right, here we go right here. Go back up here. Hit this button. And then we'll play it. Here we go. Look at this. No dribbling. You shoot. Oh, they had nets at this time. Now watch. Now it's another jump ball. And they're playing on the grass. Like, I don't know. What do y'all think? That would be a rough game to play. That would be a rough game to play. Wow. That's crazy. Basketball over the years. Thanks for being here, guys. Stay up. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.